I'm thrilled and welcome to have joined Weeby today, Nell Derek Debevoise Dewey. That is a mouthful, but Nell 3D. She is an amazing keynote speaker on leadership and an amazing connection. How we were introduced was through Lucy Swidberg, who is here on this call today. I called Lucy and said, I need someone really interesting and amazing in leadership. And she said, I have just the right person. One thing that is fascinating by Nell is on my bucket list is that she also does retreats and coaching with horses. And she's going to tell us a little bit about that retreat, but that is definitely on my vision board, on my dream list to do today. The hour session is a little different today. She's going to run it similar to a keynote, and we are going to use the handout in the chat to follow along. And we'll also have a little bit of working time as well. This is a deeply intensive leadership training as well. We are so happy that you're here now. Welcome and looking forward to an amazing hour.
Likewise, Lisa, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Lucy, so good to see you, freshman roommate from college. So we go way back, and what a treat to have that come full circle for such an important group in such a profound moment for all of us. I have two MBAs actually from a joint program that I did, and a lot of the work that I'll share with you today was built in coaching with MBA students and alums over 10 years that I ran a company in New York. And so business education is near and dear to my heart. I think that it is a massive lever for impact. And so when Lucy connected me to Lisa and I learned about the Weeby mission, I was all in and thrilled to spend some time with you all today. Now, as a lot in our worlds, the last few weeks have thrown a lot of that into tumult. Lisa is fearlessly, courageously leading you all forward to evolve that mission in a way that matches the needs and the realities of our context. So I really deeply appreciate the work that you all do in your lives. And I don't underestimate the investment that you're making to spend this hour with us and with me and with this work of leading in 3D, because there's a lot that you could be doing, from kicking and screaming in despair to continuing the work of your programs to serving students to your own well-being. So thank you for being here. I would love, we heard some intros in the beginning, which is great, but everyone, if you would, please drop into chat. Where you are geographically is just interesting to feel where the energy is coming from around the country and world. But also, if there's one word with how you're showing up today, whether that's sunny or exhausted or terrified or enthused or anything, is totally fair game, no judgment. So I am going to share some stories in this framework, but I also really want you to be engaged. I'm a pedagogist as well as many of you, and we know that you can listen to things and maybe they stick, but if you actually engage with them, they will become your own and serve you and your work as well as your students and your teams and your institutions. So get in the habit. Lisa promised me that this was an engaged group, and I see it popping already. So all over the place, focused. Love it, Lisa. Determined. Yes, Lucy. Interested, hopeful, locked in. Yeah, so good. Pragmatically optimistic. Lavon, I have that on some of my bios. I'm a pragmatic optimist. Yes, I see you. We need that right now. Productive, energized, good, good, good. And keep this coming, as well as other thoughts, comments, questions that are arising for you through the hour. If I don't get to address it real time, we do have time at the end for questions so I can catch up. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. I'll get the chat from Lisa afterwards. So don't hesitate to drop all thoughts, questions, challenges, concerns over there in the chat. Really welcome that. So today I'm gonna guide you through some reflection. I'm gonna do that by sharing tidbits of my keynote that will help you understand this lead in 3D framework and a little bit of where it came from in my own life and background and work. Obviously, this is not an hour-long keynote like I do at some conferences, and so I want it to be more interactive. So again, I've kind of curated the bits and pieces that you need to really take away this lead in in 3D framework, which is a powerful tool, as I've seen, for purpose driven, impact seeking leaders, like I have heard and see all of you to be. And it's intentionally really simple. It has evolved and emerged after about 12, 13 years of work with hundreds of leaders in different sectors, industries, geographies, and different stages of life. As I said, MBA students, but also MBA women, particularly re-entering the workforce after a break, and kind of later career retirees. So some of that energy here in the room too. And so it has gotten really simple. And that is the power of it. That's why I'm now sharing it as broadly as I can, because you really will be able, should you so choose, should it feel useful, you will walk away from today with that framework and some tools to really play it out. There will be moments of quiet, and there is that PDF that Lisa provided on the Dropbox link in the chat. So please pull that down. It's a fillable PDF, so you can use that real time. Of course, you also are free to write with an actual like pen and paper if you're old school. That's charming and powerful for our neurology and learning, or just another note taker that you want to use. But please do that, jot thoughts, take advantage of those breaks, and as is useful, drown me out for bits. If you're really on a tear, locked in, getting some good thoughts down, please use that time as well, right? We recognize different learning styles. And so the goal of this hour is to be useful to you more than anything else. It'll feel fast because there's a lot to cover. And I do want to send you away with the full package so that you can use it to your best benefit afterwards. So just know that we'll keep kind of a quick tenor. But again, drop questions into the chat. Use the time as best serves you. We'll have a few minutes at the end for Q&A. And with that, I'm going to ask us to ground. If you do have any neuroscience background or just basic biology, you know that oxygen is a really important ingredient of life, to say nothing of learning. And you may have heard of screen apnea, which is the phenomena that when we are looking at a screen, computer or phone, that blue light actually causes us to breathe more shallowly and take in less breath into our body. I see some eyes. Wendy's like, whoa, that's scary. Yeah, it's crazy. We get less oxygen, and that is not a good thing for learning or just like survival. And so with that, if you are able, if anyone's driving, keep your eyes on the road. But if you are able, I'm going to invite you to look away from the screen. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. We won't use these screenshots to blackmail anyone or anything, we promise. But just settle into your seat. Maybe do a little shoulder roll, neck roll, jiggle out whatever stress is already building up on this day, in this month, in this year, in this life. And then come to stillness and breathe. Breathe deeply. Feel your feet on the floor and your butt in the seat. And just remember why you're here. Here in your job, here with Weeby, here with Lisa and your colleagues, and here in this session to think about leading in 3D. Flood your body with all that life-giving oxygen. And with one more deep breath, come back to the group. Does your purpose light you up? Or does it burn you out? What if the secret to real impact isn't doing more, but doing what matters most? How can we be on fire without burning out? I ask these questions on behalf of my 12-year-old self, who recognized my life purpose over 3 decades ago. These questions about purpose and impact are informed by my learnings and definitely some mistakes from the journey of pursuing that mission, which was to help all people reach their full potential, regardless of their background or identity. In these 30 plus years, I have been on fire. I have lived on 4 continents, worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, earned 4 graduate degrees, including those 2 MBAs that I mentioned. And I have burnt out. I share the journey and these questions that I open with in case they might help you all honor your younger self's ambitions to burn as brightly as you can. And so I'm wondering, and this is our first prompt on that handout. Did you maybe also have an early experience that has lit you up over the years? Or now in your roles and in your membership with Weeby, do you have a commitment to having a positive impact on the people, the students, the institutions, and the planet around you? And so with that, right away, we're going to get into it. I'm going to ask you to start jotting the first 2 questions there. The first 3 questions on that first page actually speak to all of this. And so I'll be quiet for just 2 or 3 minutes and let you jot some thoughts. I know that these are big questions. I know we could spend all day on it, but as I warned, the idea is to come in and out of the journaling, the reflection, and some of this framework. So 2 minutes, go ahead and think about those first few questions. I'll pause you there. Keep writing if you're on a roll. My 12-year-old self loves to see your 12-year-old or 18-year-old or 6-year-old self. So if you are inspired and willing, please share any of those early experiences in the chat. Always really powerful to honor those younger selves. But onward to this idea of coming alive. So, as I shared in the 30 plus years now since that 12-year-old self saw this mission, I have learned really personally and directly that doing the most impactful, world changing work is not enough for a fulfilling life. It's not enough if it costs us the impact that we care about having on our families or on ourselves. For me in my 20s, I was doing work that changed people's lives without a doubt. I was working with refugees in a very intense frontline service situation, which I chose based on my own early experience, seeing unfair barriers to opportunity. And that's what led to this mission. So I was helping refugees overcome barriers to reach their full potential, which was a total dream job, right? It was right in line with that 12-year-old self's mission. But doing the work had costs. I was literally sick and tired. I was neglecting friends and family, coming up short for those relationships. I neglected my first marriage to the point of divorce. And then I missed my father's funeral. It did not feel like success as I had imagined it. But I learned from the Rolling Stones via wild dance parties with my dad, actually, before he passed away, that we can't always get what we want. We cannot have it all. But I've seen now over time that we can have our all. And so, what does that mean? I want to share a little bit to break down what this notion of having our all looks like. The philosopher and activist Howard Thurman got this idea of having your all. You may know the quote, which I love. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who come alive." Have you heard this? Give me a little yes or a heart or something in the chat. It's a fabulous, powerful quote that I think a lot of us love these days. I love it because everyone I've ever met gets it, right? As people, as humans, we know what it feels like to be alive. We felt that fire, if it's just for moments in life or phases, entire chapters. So I invite you just for a moment, think of a moment when you have felt lit up. Maybe that match I lit gave you a sense, a visceral feeling or memory of feeling that lit up when you felt fully alive. And holding on to that feeling now, picture a friend or a colleague or a family member in a moment when they had come fully alive. What did it look like? Who did it serve? How did it impact you? And again, now, if you look at the bottom question on page one and the top on page two, there's some space to write that in, to capture that moment when you felt fully alive and when you saw someone else. So again, 2 minutes, I'll be quiet and please jot. I'll take a minute to catch up on chat. Pretty good, those fiery moments, right? Again, feel free to share bits of yourself or your loved ones in the chat and examples of that fire. I love Lisa, the trapper keeper to the bullet journal is like really just so hits home. I love that image, but it's real, right? You do what you do. We become more and more ourselves over time in different ways, and we learn from failure. Lavon, what a beautiful journey, right? How powerful to have that near failure, kind of a smack in the face that has turned you into I can only imagine what a builder and a solver and to bring people along with listening. So thank you. It's really great to have that all in here. Um, so building on that fire, you know, when we are on fire like that, in those moments, again, I hope everyone was able to find at least one, maybe several, or maybe a whole phase of life when you were feeling that. Maybe it's right now with everything that we're facing, right? That is lighting a lot of us up. And in these moments, we are present, right? Which allows us to be kind and creative, empathetic, as Levon, and listening, but also motivated. And that makes us powerful. But we can only get to fully alive by leading in 3D. This approach of simultaneously pursuing goals for me, myself, my well-being, we, our teams, our institutions, our families, and the world. Coming alive requires deep connection to ourselves and who we are, as well as the people around us, and some larger sense of community, or even maybe a calling, if you think of it like that. Before we go forward, I want to point out that the downside of not taking this lead in 3D approach of serving me and we and world is really bad. The downside is big. And so there's some research the AARP did. They surveyed thousands of elders about their dying regret. And it turns out that the most common regret of the dying is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not what others expected of me. So on our deathbed, we regret prioritizing other people's expectations for us over our own goals and dreams more than anything else. So this matters. It's important to tap into our 3D self. And for you all, given your influence over people and students and future leaders and teams and institutions and research and learning and best practice, you have a particular responsibility and opportunity to lead in 3D. There's too much goodness on offer not to. We are lucky to be alive in this bonkers moment, right? Because we have access to the resources, the research, the technology, the knowledge to build win-win-wins that serve us all in the long run, right? To create value for customers and students and supply chains and communities and investors. But we're not yet harnessing that abundance. In some cases, we're stuck with the one-dimensional tactics that actually worked really well during the Industrial Revolution, right? That leaves us with these false trade-offs, quantity or quality, employees or customers, profit or purpose. But these trade-offs lead to unnecessary sacrifices, leaving value on the table. In other cases, these days, the problem is actually trying to have it all, right? Chasing more, all of it, everything, all the time, which leads to overwhelm, burnout, distraction. And so that's where we can use intentional alignment, make strategic trade-offs to get really clear about exactly what matters to us to unlock our collective potential and those win-win-wins. So getting into it, what does it look like to lead in 3D? Well, as I said, there's a lot more behind this, but it's a pretty simple equation that I want to share with you today so that you can take it away. Reach out if you want to hear more. Basically, we think about our inputs of time, attention, energy, which lead to certain outcomes, right? So we just very tactically, we think about our actions on a day-to-day, very practical, optimistic maybe, but very practical day-to-day level, and then see the returns that they generate over time. And these outcomes, these results of our effort all fit into one of three dimensions. The first is me, my holistic well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. The second is we, our teams, our universities, our families, right? How are we contributing to the results that they experience? And finally, world. What is the impact that we're having on the broader communities that we care about? Maybe a town or your region or an industry, a field of study, an identity group, or something else, whatever your community is. And so when we get clear about which of these outcomes in the me and we and world dimensions actually matter to us, to a life lived true to ourselves, then we can invest our time, attention, and energy more efficiently and effectively to achieve those goals. When it comes to the input into this equation of having our all, there's also a really simple and universally human framework. So, the spheres of impact are 6 areas in which we all invest our time, attention, and energy throughout our work and life holistically to achieve these returns. And by mapping the way we spend our energy through these 6 spheres, we get a baseline, right? So we can see what we need to change to get these desired outcomes and then really hold ourselves accountable in a tactical day-to-day way to get that alignment. Some of you, given your work and given your presence here and given your presence in graduate education as a career, you may already be clear about what you're working toward, right? That legacy that will come eventually or quite soon when you retire. Or maybe you just can picture one of the dimensions, what you want in the world or what you want from me. Or maybe you see 2 more clearly, right? Or maybe it's more of a nonverbal vision. Maybe you have some vision of how you want to leave the world behind for your grandkids or your neighbor's grandkids. And so I'm going to ask you in a minute to jot some thoughts about that legacy that you hope to build and leave behind. And if the idea of describing a legacy is intimidating for a Wednesday afternoon or morning, you're not alone, you're in good company. And the 3-step roadmap that I'm going to share shortly is going to help. But one tidbit that I like to offer is that we can think of our 3D goals, our legacy, as the 1/8 billionth of work to heal the world that is uniquely ours to do. So, what does that mean? Right now, there are a lot of problems that are worth solving. A lot, right? Some of them are local, some of them are personal, some of them are much more global, systemic, complex. But the good news is that there are 8 billion of us on this planet, and we all have vastly diverse skills, interests, passions. And so the work that is ours is to figure out what portion of these world's problems are we uniquely positioned and qualified to solve, and then just do that, right? Just our 1/8 billion without getting distracted or despaired or depressed or disillusioned or, taken over by those other portions of the world's problems that we are not positioned or qualified to do, and focusing on the win-win-wins we can create and pursuing these 3D goals. So this scaffolding, this lead in 3D, the inputs to the 3D outputs, what I've seen with leaders and students and encore career professionals later in life, what I've seen is that this scaffolding for these big, important questions, like what is the legacy I want to leave, it allows us to answer those questions in really specific detail. Yeah, because that's what's required. It's not enough these days to have a general sense. I'd like to be a good person or a good leader or a great professor or a great dean. It's not enough. We got to get really specific. What is my 1/8 billionth? And then do that to the fullest. So, again, time to capture some of these thoughts. And I know from being a human and working with humans that these are big questions, and it can be a little bit hard to stay in the zone when there's email or there's tea to be made or a call to be answered or a text to be sent. But I ask you to please stay in the zone, stay locked in here with us and pull up that PDF. The second, third, and fourth questions on page 2 ask you to jot down some of this 3D legacy that you can picture. I know 2 to 3 minutes is not enough to describe a legacy, but I'm going to ask you to start. Just jot some thoughts, right? Brainstorm mode, no judgment, anything counts. I'll be quiet and come back in 2 minutes. All right. Introducing Riley. I know that some of you would love to cuddle her right about now. I hear you. That is my afternoon plan. Um, Puppy love is so good. So cool. I hope that maybe some things clarified or emerged, or if that's always super clear to you day to day, it's always fun to be able to write it down and think about it one more time. And if it was hard or intimidating or overwhelming, again, totally normal. You're in good company. And so, in this final piece, what I'm going to share is this kind of three-step roadmap. And so, for those of you who are doers, who are maybe a little type A, structured thinkers, see you. And this is where I have gotten in my own journey. And again, with this work with hundreds of people, is a really simple and kind of fun three-step process to keep repeating to get closer and closer and closer to this notion of having my all and leading in 3D. So buckle up for the process, and we'll have a little bit of time to play with it at the end and then close. So also be thinking about questions that are emerging to you. I learned this roadmap to leading in 3D in elementary school. Of course, I didn't get it at the time, right? I was only 12, but I had this mission. And my favorite day in elementary school each spring was when the local firefighters would come and talk to us, right? And it was fun because we got to like skip class and do something different for the afternoon, which is always a good gimmick when you can set aside your trapper keeper and hang out with firefighters. Their uniforms were amazing, right? They came in the whole hose and the whole getup, but also they just oozed passion about their pretty difficult, sometimes life-threatening jobs because of their ability to help people and save lives. And so that always really struck me. But most specifically, and if you also grew up in the 80s in the US, this might be familiar. They every year would teach us to stop, drop, and roll. If something on your body catches fire, you stop in your tracks, you drop to the floor, and you roll around on the floor to suffocate and extinguish the flames. This was the lesson. Turns out it also is the way to start learning leading in 3D, right? So you'll see the fire emoji or the fire metaphor coming through. Purpose lights me up. It lights us all up. I've seen it. We've seen it, right? It can burn bright, making us be creative and resilient and persistent, motivated in ways that we wouldn't be without that fire. And as I shared, it can also burn us out, end marriages, lead to really bad decisions in families. So I'm curious where you guys are at right now. Maybe there's a yes, or just put a fire emoji if you have felt the need to put out a fire in the last few weeks or maybe the last year. Anybody putting out fires for yourself, for other people? Maybe you've seen other people putting out fires. Yeah, I know. Chances are, emoji or not, right? You have been really close to a fire. Adriana Lavana, I see you. Less than 2 degrees from a fire, a destructive fire, not the on fire lit up of purpose, but the uncontrolled flames of burnout. And so I use this stop, drop, and roll process to get to leading in 3D, to keep the fire contained, to keep it harnessed and serve our best interests and serve our impact in the world. Step one is stop. Really stop. Take a moment in your day, as we're doing right now. Maybe it's an afternoon a month, maybe it's a day a year, just to pause. We live at such a frenzied pace. And often we stop in response to a crisis. Exhibit A, we've talked about several already today. Or getting laid off, or getting threatened to be fired, or an illness or a surgery, the death of a family member or friend. And these externally imposed stops do provoke often life-changing insights, right? They make us think, and that often changes us. So why wait? 3D leaders, stop and do that reflection proactively. without an external crisis provoking it. These stops for me come in a lot of shapes and sizes. I have a daily meditation practice, at least 5 minutes of quiet, even if I'm still in bed, half asleep. A weekly practice tracking and reflecting on how I'm doing toward my 3D goals in a slightly nerdy type A Excel spreadsheet, because that's what works for me. Then a quarterly practice of qualitative and quantitative reflection on how I'm doing toward those goals so that I can revise that roadmap right for the next quarter and think about what needs to change. Plus, a micro practice that I picked up from Catherine Price. She wrote The Power of Fun, a beautiful book. And the practice is to say delight and point at the things that light me up and bring me joy, whether it's a sunset that's particularly colorful and juicy, or my dog cuddling or romping in the snow, or a colleague's achievement, a friend's win, or a hard earned victory of my own, really taking the moment to stop and appreciate that delight. And all these stops, whatever they might look like for you, train our brains to resist the blinking red alerts, the infinite video scrolls, right? That are so expert at kidnapping our precious attention. We need to pull away from that in order to recognize how our efforts are or aren't leading toward the 3D goals that we care about. So once you've gotten in the habit of stopping, you're ready for step 2, which is drop. A secret about this leading in 3D, it's not about doing more, adding more to your to-do list. I'm not trying to guilt you into adding all the things you should be doing. It's actually about seeing and dropping the outdated habits and those external shoulds that distract you from your true priorities, from that work, that life that is yours to live. Like me staying in that frontline humanitarian work long after I was useful, costing me well-being, my career progress, and my first marriage. By building the practice of dropping these activities that no longer advance our 3D goals, we make room for the things that do. And I see you all. I've talked to Lisa. I've seen some of your profiles. I know your work. This is not a room of droppers, right? We're ambitious, we're hardworking, we're caring, we want to do more, and we don't waste a lot of time. There might be a few minutes to reclaim from maybe Instagram or Pinterest or podcasts or the New York Times Games app. But I am very confident that most of you spend most of your waking hours productively. And so, what that means is that the opportunity to increase our impact actually lies in recognizing the activities that no longer support what matters to us and dropping them so that we can fit more aligned investments of our time, attention, and energy. And so, knowing that this is a tough one for folks like us to drop misaligned activities, I'm going to ask you for a super quick brainstorm. So, on the top of page 3, question 1 is, what is one thing that you could try dropping this week? Just a week. It doesn't have to be like a permanent forever. I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to come check up on you. But just think, is there one thing that you should do or that used to be helpful that actually may not be aligned anymore? Capture that idea. Again, it's a brainstorm. If there's something that comes to mind as your one obvious, great. But maybe it's a brainstorm of a few options, and just capture those on the top of page 3. I invite you to push yourself a bit on this dropping. And when we close, I'll share a download to build out a whole to don't list, which is one of my favorite tools for myself as well as people that I work with, because so often it's like, I should compost. I should facilitate a values conversation with all my kids at age 6. I should call my friend, blah, 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 right? There's plenty of things we could and should all be doing, but actually, what can you to don't? What can you let yourself off the hook for to allow for space or rest or these new and different things that are actually more aligned with how we want to show up today? So step two is a biggie. But let's move on. Once we've done this necessary work of stopping, right, to reflect, step one, and dropping some things, we can get to step three, roll. So, like a snowball, right? Picture a snowball rolling down the hill, gathering more snow along the way and growing simply by momentum. Rolling in 3D is the same. We leverage momentum to create these wins that serve us, as well as our institutions, students, and families, and the broader communities we care about. In this 3D roadmap, the roll is about linking the impact of our behavior in all three dimensions on me, ourselves, we, our teams and our organizations, and world, the broader communities. For example, if we recognize how a choice at work in the office, right, might impact our own well-being or and create some social or environmental impact in the world, we uncover some of these win-win-wins, right? We see ways that our investments of time, attention, and energy can multitask so that they're actually advancing our goals in more than one dimension. We get to this having our all not by piling on the to-dos, but by rolling what we already do into the outcomes that matter to us. So let me share a really goofy, mundane, basic example just to show that these win-win-wins are really everywhere in plain sight. Every morning, I make myself a protein shake. It fuels my body so that I have energy and build muscle, which is a me outcome that matters to me. It gives me also more energy. It gives me physical strength so that I can show up better for audiences and for my family. And finally, I buy this protein and these supplements from local, woman-owned, and or B Corp certified businesses. But I'm actually having impact in the world by supporting under-recognized entrepreneurs. So I feel better. My family and clients get a more energetic me, and I support responsible businesses and generate wealth for non-white male people, helping to create equity. So rolling something as basic, something as silly as smoothie ingredients in 3D, I hope you start to see these win-win-wins, right? That I'm serving my own needs, but also pursuing community and business goals in a very real way. So look, I don't want you to get crazy, right? I'm not suggesting that you dissect every single bite of food and every single bit of your business day and calendar and goals for every element of all of their implications in all three dimensions. But what I've seen to be true is that stopping, dropping, and rolling to intentionally align your investments of time, attention, and energy with your 3D goals actually can harness that inner fire, prevent the destructive fire of burnout, and catalyze these win-win-wins. And often then that takes on a life of their own, right? They're motivating, they keep us going. So the magic here is that stopping, dropping, and rolling reveals opportunities to do more good without doing more. 3D leaders find themselves able to do more good without doing more. Whereas if we focus on one dimension, it's not good. We lose opportunity for impact and to be happy and live lives that we won't regret, right? So if we focus only on the self dimension, that shows up as narcissism. We've maybe seen that. If we focus only on the world, these broader communities, right? That looks like martyrdom and leads to suffering as well. And if we play out two of the three dimensions, we can also see that that's not enough, right? A lot of modern society is really focused on me and we and what I can do here. But that leads to emptiness, right? Which is often followed by depression. And I have seen that a focus on we and world, right? The selfless approach is a sure recipe for burnout, neglecting the me dimension. So it really takes all three, right? Like a stool is stablest with three legs, the same is true of leading in 3D. And so we stop, drop, and roll to recognize unaligned activities and replace them with efforts that roll into our 3D goals so we can achieve what really matters. And indeed, play with it. But what I've seen is that these win-win-wins are everywhere and they don't cost us anything, but they get us aligned to fuel our performance, well-being, and impact. So I want to take a few of our last few minutes before we turn to questions and follow up to think about what this 3D might look like for you. So same on page 3, we're kind of continuing this notion of to don't. If you look at questions 2, 3, and 4, it'll get into this idea of freeing up time, attention, and energy. What might that to don't allow you to do, and what impact would that have? So take 2 more minutes to jot some initial thoughts there before we close. All right, just over 5 minutes to close. I know this takes more than a few minutes, Lisa. I hear that and see that. And I warned you, we came in eyes wide open. But it's really important to start, right? Something is better than nothing. And what I've seen is, as I said, right, this scaffolding, this lead in 3D, some framework, some tools mean that 2 minutes can build, that it's less intimidating because you have a process. You can think, okay, stop. How am I stopping? Am I breathing? Right? You can drop. What can I drop today? What do I have to drop today? And then how can I roll what I'm doing here into something bigger? How can I connect the dots and make meaning out of a choice at work, out of an obligation at home, out of a passion in the world? How can I connect that back to my team, to my family? How can I make that be enlivening and inspiring for myself to harness that fire and not let it be burning me to ash? So I know that this is a lifelong journey. I know that it takes hours. I do it in retreats with horses, like Lisa mentioned, next one, Santa Fe in October. Find me on LinkedIn. I don't have the registration live yet, but it'll be up in the next few weeks. So there's plenty of time, plenty of reasons, plenty of ways to keep doing this. And something is better than nothing, right? Building in these little bite-sized reflections, these bite-sized stops, that moment of delight when you see something great, that really matters. A few next steps here, as you asked, Lisa, a resource that people can join. But as we close, I want everybody to just think of one question that you might have about this. You don't have to ask it, right? We don't have time to get to everyone's questions. But in the interest of learning and consolidating this, just hold on to one question that came up. It doesn't have to be big or small or smart or strategic. The fourth page is intentionally sort of open and blank for you to capture your takeaways. So if you want to write it down, put that question there. And if it is burning and you want an answer, unmute and speak it out or put it in chat. I'm happy to speak to those.
Now, I put this in the chat. What is one thing that you would like us to do upon leaving this session? What is the next step?
A favorite for me is to pay it forward, right? The best way to learn something is to teach it. And so whatever version stuck, whether, for Lucy, it's the 1/8 billionth, or if you love the firefighters too, maybe it's stop, drop, and roll in this new kind of funky, fun approach. Maybe it's this notion of lead in 3D and the 3D, the me, we, world legacy, right? So, but whatever that tidbit is, tell someone else about it because that will help you process what it means for you and how you might use it. Um, Again, the chats that I put in are that to don't list. Oh, sorry, I said to do list, but it's a to don't list. That's what's so fun about it. So that's a really easy worksheet. I know this takes more than 2 minutes, so keep working on these 4 pages and answering these questions. But I just invite you to keep thinking about this, to adapt having your all, creating win-win-win, bleeding in 3D, however it serves you. Whatever piece of this sticks is what I'm happy for you to take forward.
Now, are you able to chat about your book that's coming out and what we can look forward to?
Yeah. Have your all. The 3D roadmap to legacy, impact, and well-being comes out in October. Nothing quite public. You may know if you've been through the publishing process. There are so many steps and contingencies, but coming soon. If you grab that to don't list, you will also be added to my newsletter about every few weeks with content and writing and news. And of course, the book will be shared there. And it'll be available at bookshop.org first and foremost, as well as probably Amazon, because that's where people find books. And it'll have a companion playbook, workbook, so that you can do more of this, making it your own.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nell. And as a final note, she is a speaker. She does speaking for different senior leaders as well as for student groups. So also welcome to reach out to Nell as well to come go more in depth in this topic. Thrilled and honored for this session. It was incredibly timely for me. I need several weeks of this session going through so much change. I think all of us are thinking about what are we stopping, what are we dropping, and what are we rolling with. I really like that terminology as well. Looking forward to a great session. Thank you, all the Weeby members that came as well. We have a lot of great sessions this month, and I look forward to seeing everyone soon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, everyone, for being here.